Hey everybody, this is Perch. I think this is a thought-provoking email, so let's get into it. And by the way, I did a video, recently about the lore is racist. I think that's what I put as the title. And several of you are like, that writer is definitely a troll. Definitely not. I mean, first of all, the writer has written before on a number of different topics, and so I feel very confident that no, it was not a troll. That was somebody's genuine appearance idea. And when I read these emails and I put them on the air, most of the time, I'd like to think that I'm batting a pretty good average of emails that are genuine. That's generally where we're going with some of this stuff. So let's get into this one. Some of you may have the same opinion. All I can say is the writer of this email has written in, off and on for the last 3 years. So if it's a troll, it's a really long game. Like this is somebody playing absolutely the long game in a bit. And why would you? It's my experience that nobody plays the long game. But here we go. I'm playing the long game with something, but that's a story for another day. All right. Here's the email. Here's where we go. Hey, Perch. All right. Hey, Perch. I'm going to skip the first paragraph. Anyway, it says, hey, Perch. So my question is, we talk a lot on this channel about various social topics that you bring up, like the environment. I haven't brought the environment that much. LGBTQ, writers, creators, and the like. I'm curious, don't you think that comic books, with their reach and access to people, have a responsibility to introduce concepts about gay relationships? Some of your viewers, and here I understand that you have attracted a right-leaning audience, likely because of some of the people who recommended your channel years ago. I mean, maybe. Some of you recommended channels years ago are likely to object to what I'm about to say. But given comic books and their ability to create social change, don't you think that comic books have a responsibility to introduce LGBTQ topics as a way to help normalize and assist people who are in the minority and struggling with their life? I'll give you an example. Wiccan and Hulkling in Young Avengers, people always go for those two. Although I think that's a decent, they're more recent characters, it's fine. So Wiccan are two gay characters who recently became married, and by the way, married is in quotes here, married under pre-scroll rules, which is not exactly analogous to human marriage. Okay, fine. So it's marriage. Let's not think too hard about this. It's marriage. Okay, it's fine. I don't know if do pre-scroll wedding ceremonies, do they break a glass? I don't know, but it that's a detail. Let's not worry about that. All right. This at some point look, I'm going to give you a personal opinion here. We'll go back to the mail. Look, it's comic books, or it's movies, or it's sci-fi. Let's not get too hung up on the details about the Kree-Skrull culture when it comes to gay marriage, or the Klingon culture when it comes to trans rights. I don't know. God damn it, it's like fantasy stuff. I was having this conversation with somebody recently about Star Wars, and to me, and bear with me here, it's going to be a weird point, but this is my point. The first Star Wars movie was about kid who really had, was a farmer and didn't have a lot of space experience, was through a series of mishaps opened up to a bigger world than he ever thought possible, and ultimately had to get a tiny little bomb into a hole in order to defeat evil for the cause of good. Because evil was running around blowing up planets and being a bunch of dicks, And good is like, hey, you shouldn't blow up planets, and so we had to put a little bomb in a hole, and that saved the day. That was Star Wars. And those concepts are ones that, you can understand if you're 4 years old. My daughter, my older daughter, when she was 4, watched Star Wars A New Hope, and she was bored through most of it. And by the way, several of you may be like, how dare you? The movie is kind of boring in a bunch of places. If you're a tiny child with, exposed to modern technology, there's big, long scenes of exposition and people like in a land speeder running around the desert. It's not amazing, catchy art for kids. I'm sorry, it's not. By the way, any of you who are parents, if you were all excited about Star Wars and you showed your kid Star Wars and you're like, fuck, why is my kid bored? It's because it's boring for big parts of that movie. But the one thing the kid can get their arms around is I am a farmer, got, very basic person. And but one day I could find myself in a situation where I'm flying a spacecraft around and putting a bomb in a hole and blowing up the Death Star. And that's cool because, fuck you, evil. Kids get that. That's what kids get. And by the way, you could replace the white Luke Skywalker with a black Luke Skywalker, or an Asian Luke Skywalker, a Mexican Luke Skywalker, or a gay Luke Skywalker. And as long as the goal is putting the bomb in the hole, and please, no jokes, then it works. It doesn't have to be more elaborate than that. And if you look at modern Star Wars, like modern Star Wars is introducing the concept of racism, but how does that even make sense? Racism and homophobia make no sense in the world of Star Wars because we've seen it that like the world has tipped into like there's not I don't know, maybe somebody in the Star Wars lore can tell me otherwise, but there's no like planet of white people. Or there's it's like Han's friend is an alien. Like there's no concept, like race doesn't matter anymore in the Star Wars universe. Like there's like, how would it make any sense for somebody to go up to Lando and be like, I don't trust black people with money. Like you're trusting like an alien with balls on his chin and a person with tentacle things coming out of their head and like this is what you're surrounded by. The concept of race or sexism or homophobia makes no sense in the world of Star Wars. It just it doesn't. This is the basic point, and we got to get back to this email, but this is the problem with a lot of sci-fi and to some extent superheroes in general. Once you cross the chasm of people who can, create matter with their minds or change their form as a shapeshifter, sorry, all this stuff ceases to make any sense because it doesn't matter. Now, the Marvel universe is set in our universe, so obviously you still have gay characters and you still have racism, and that's fine. But once you fast forward that thing to the world of like Star Wars or Star Trek or all that kind of stuff, like you've got humans and aliens commingling. None of this matters anymore. It's done. So the problem with a lot of modern Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever it happens to be is it makes about as much sense as going into an Arby's. You can't bring those topics in. And so when you try and introduce racism into Star Wars, it doesn't compute. And that should be a good thing. That should be a positive, because if you're trying to teach children the idea that, hey, the character of a person matters, that a farmer from a desert planet can be more than his destiny and can one day defeat evil if he just, stays true to his heart. That's a good message. That's the message of Star Wars. You don't need to make it more complicated than that. Anyway, let's go back to the mail. I'm going to skip ahead to the end because I kind of just answered it. The basic question is this. All right, back to the mail. I just read it. My basic question is this. Don't you think that comic books have some responsibility to help normalize and teach people that concepts like gay marriage and tolerance are not only acceptable, but good for us all. What do you think? I apologize. I skipped a bunch of parts of that mail. There's a personal story in there. There's some other things in there. I wasn't clear if I should read the personal story, so I didn't. So I apologize for more fractured mail. I said it there. I don't, what I struggle with is the idea that comics or movies have a responsibility. It's that word that I get hung up on. I think that comics and movies and all this kind of stuff and music, it has a responsibility to entertain. That's kind of it. Beyond that, I don't know that it has much of a responsibility. It is what it is. And I know it's kind of a cliche thing to say, but I don't think it's more complicated than that. It just, be entertaining. That's pretty much it. I think that, if we're looking for giant life lessons and things out of comic books, I think we're looking at the wrong places. I think it's just meant to be media to consume. And in a lot of cases, the comic or the movie or anything else, I'll put it to you in two ways. First off, I've mentioned before, I have had and have several very close friends who are gay. I think they have the right to be married, and I think they have the right to adopt and have children and all the rest. I think that's a basic right. I would never get in the way of that. I think that's fine. Some of you may disagree, and that's fine, but that's my opinion. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But I don't think comic books is the place to, put it this way: if you're trying to land this message, you need to do it in a medium more serious than comic books. I think comic books is a terrible place to land this, to help. Like if I was trying to get tolerance for a friend of mine who just wants to live his life and do his thing, why would I do it through comic books? It seems like the dumbest ass place to do it. I would do it through laws. I would do it through just trying to be a decent fucking human being for that person. I would not try and do it by comic books. I feel like I'd be a dick if I was trying to do it through comic books. I feel like I'd be, what a horrible person I would be if I was like, hey, you know what? You're a friend of mine and you're a good person and, you just want to live your life and do your thing and you want to get married to this person you've been committed to for the last 10 years. And you know what? I'm going to help you by encouraging there to be a storyline in Wonder Woman that supports your cause. If I was if I'm my gay friend, I'd be like, oh, fuck you. That's the best you can do? We're going to support this cause through Wonder Woman? What the hell? I don't know. That just seems lame. I don't, if I'm a comic writer and I'm like, do I go to bed and I'd be like, I wrote another comic book that introduced a transgender supporting character that showed up on 2 pages and have I done anything? I don't think that's success. I don't think I've helped anyone. You for those of you who have been on this channel for a while, we did that interview with Rachel Pollack. Rachel Pollack wrote some stories that I love in Doom Patrol, and I'll always remember. And I'm sorry. The world's a colder place with her not in it. That's my support for her. Read the comics. Treat Rachel like a human being. That's what you should do. If I was like, the best way to support Rachel is to introduce a character in the pages of, symbiote Spider-Man. I don't know. That seems very, very lame. I don't think comic books have a responsibility to create social change. I think they have a responsibility to tell great stories. And I think you could tell great stories and introduce, gay characters in those comic books and just have them, if the focus is number one, tell great stories, mission accomplished. Whether you're straight or gay or whatever you happen to be, You pick up that comic, you're entertained, and life is good. That's what comics are for. The place to gain tolerance acceptance is through, quite frankly, there's a lot of ways, but the best way is don't be a douche. If you work in a company with somebody who's gay, treat them with respect and dignity. That's it. Do that. If you do that, you're doing your part. You don't do it through Wonder Woman. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Again, like the letter writer said, I'm sure some of you have different opinions, but my opinion, and I've said it before in other videos, for example, the pronouns thing, you tell me what you want me to call you. I'll call you what you want me to call you. I'm not making a biological or science decision. I'm just treating you with some dignity. The end. Thanks for listening.